I would like to talk here for the second half about The Last of Us on HBO. Yeah. World's burning, and let's talk about television again. What else are we doing? What else are we doing with ourselves? We're not creating militias, at least not any that we can talk about. Just kidding. I'm not creating any militias. But my God, we still have the content, right? We still appraising content. That really is why we're here, right? Like appraising content is the American modus vivendi. That is what we're here for, to absorb the content and then to render some sort of judgment on the content. And I think there is a buried hope, much like with the demand, for people to open their eyes or talk more about crime, about horrible news stories, that if enough people have the right opinion about the content will get better, which will then flow to our structures. When, of course, it's the opposite way around. The content is bad because the structures creating the content are bad and getting worse. But so yeah, it's sad that we're talking at this point while our own country is gassing itself about a video game TV show. But I do think there's something interesting to say about it, so that's why I'm talking about it. For one thing, I think it is a red alarm that the current like front piece HBO show is based on a video game. I think that is a bad sign for and things in general. And paradoxically makes the show more boring because the people making it are clearly aware that they made a video game show and they need to push against that. So they're draining it of any, actual genre enjoyments. They're making it as sort of punishing and slack as, a tightly observed family drama, even though it's supposed to be about mushroom zombies. That's another generator of bad media, is something that cannot examine and be honest about its own nature, demands to tries to validate itself as something else. Uh, so the show is I think, very bad, very boring, more than anything, boring, slack. That's the word I keep thinking of. Just there's no sense of any tension, any stakes. So that's my main critique of it. But the episode that came out this last weekend has a lot of people annoyed because of its treatment of these revolutionaries who overthrow the evil federal government there in Kansas City. Because it does the new boss, same as the old boss. The revolutionaries are worse than the people they overthrew thing. And people are using that to get mad at the show and mad at its creator and say, you fucking libs, what are you doing? But I understand why they went that way. And it's because the libs are, for all their delusion, the libs who make this show are aware of one thing that a lot of terminally online leftists refuse to accept, which is that the left is not a real force in American politics. Like that's like one of the big things that liberals tell themselves to justify why they support mainstream liberalism, even though they theoretically support all of the same goals as the left, is that the left is too weak. And that is correct. They're right about that. Now, the right, of course, sees the left and liberalism as like one thing, and the government is like a Marxist conspiracy. That's their fantasy. And they're living in that cloud cuckoo land. But like the left is also living in a world where they see a show like this and they identify themselves as the radicals who overthrow the government. But I think the liberals who make that show assume that the only people who are going to overthrow any government are the right. So they think they're helping by saying, hey, revolution, it's bad. Don't do that. Because who's going to take over? Who's going to storm? Who literally did storm a fucking government building? Was it the left? So if you're a lib making this show, you want to, if you're going to communicate a message, it's, hey, settle down. And also because liberals believe a thing that is a delusion that both the right and the left see through. which is that there is a depoliticized government structure that can be wielded, that has like its own non-political agenda that is distorted and warped by one or another ideological side, as opposed to the reality that the structures are inherently political and always being guided by a ideological agenda. Also, as someone said on Twitter, and I think they are correct, the show is anti-mushroom propaganda. My wife Amber points that out, and she's very correct. Mushrooms are friends. Mushrooms are our friends. You should not be telling people that mushrooms are going to fuck us up.
Fungi seem harmless enough. Many species know otherwise, because there are some fungi who seek not to kill, but to control.
I think a much more interesting version of this show would be one that jumps from two perspectives. One is of the grim, dark apocalypse survivors, fighting it out in these burned out cities, trying to, oppose their vision on one side or the other, and they're all shooting each other and stuff like that. And then from the point of view of the people who have been mushroom-fied, who are still people, they still have their humanity, they have their memories, they have their love and attachments. What they don't have is the all-consuming fear, the Reichian armoring against the other that we are all enwrapped with, because they would be cybernetically, naturally connected to one another. And so the show would eventually be, it would be like a comedy. It would eventually flip into a comedy, just because as you went from one perspective to the other, you realize how much of the horror of the non-mushroomed people is all self-inflicted. It's a boot, their own boot on their own neck, because their refusal to see what's in front of them, which is the mushroom people building a harmonious society. That's the point of the second game. That's funny. Kudos. Yeah, I think sometimes of the human body is a battleground, basically, between fungus and cereals. Order, structure, productivity, and connection, vibes. The human species is the tool of a planet coming into self-awareness by synthesizing its two sides, the two sides of life. And one of the reasons that we're doomed is that right now the fucking cereals have a fucking chokehold on us. We have been fully cerealified. But it's not one or the other, of course. It is it's a dialectical relationship that is worked out through human striving and eventually generates a synthesized global consciousness. The Apollonian cereals and the Dionysian fungi. Precisely. Thank you, damn boy. Put it better than I could. But I guess if I have hope, it's because this is not, we're not at the end of anything, because nothing ends. It's a process. It's an unfolding. And even if the end never comes, but the imagined end is eternally present. And we humans, the human consciousness, is the agent of this process, because we carry within our minds the the vision, the possibility, the ghost of the totality. So yeah, the HBO, of course, tool of the serial lobby, tool of the serial side. And like there's a lot of attempts to externalize this dynamic with dreams of, warring sects of the ruling elite or alien species that are battling for the human spirit. It's not any of that. It's us. It's us as part of a whole coming into recognition of that reality, battling through it, moving through stages of understanding. One of the most interesting ideas that they get at in Dawn of Everything, without getting into it at all, they just sort of mention it in passing and don't emphasize it anymore, is that ancient Egyptian civilization, as we know it, the pharaohs and all that, was potentially started as a way to foster cereal production specifically for beer. And they say, Graeber claim, like it was because this was like the food of the gods, this is the drinks of the gods, and that they needed to make it to, appease them. And then it was that cereal production relationship that then structured their society, that fixed it and grounded it. And that is sort of like it's the grain's relationship to the human mind, thanks to our consumption of it as cereals, but even more importantly as alcohol, is like toxoplasmosis. Yeah, grains domesticated humans. That's the thesis that has been advanced many times. And these cereals like trained humans to make them, to plant in a line, to harvest, to introduce a rigid concept of time and a rigid hierarchy of responsibilities, separation of labor in order to facilitate the creation of these cereals. Now, of course, you could say, oh, the bad guy is bad. This is bad. No, of course, it's not bad. It is inevitable. It's necessary. It's part of the process. Like, we could not come into any understanding of anything without building these enduring social structures that could generate art, that can generate knowledge, that can be shared, disseminated. But if it's the only thing that is fueling your social structure, then it will eventually destroy itself to maintain its hierarchies, which it imagines as inviolable and inherent and holy and necessary, and not contingent, not the product of a failure, a greater failure to recognize connection. And so that's why you got the push and pull of the fungus and the cereals. And human society grows, struggles, creates, destroys itself, rises again, leaving a residue that is then picked through, that is added to a greater race memory storehouse of experience and knowledge and encounter. Toward what end? We can't know, because we are in the middle of it. But the fact that we're aware of it, the fact that we're all here experiencing it, it always suggests to me that it has happened and it is always happening, and that our experiences are essentially suspended within it.